Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Status Coup News. I am Tina-Desiree Berg. Today is September 8th, 2022. We have a lot to discuss today, but at the top of the hour, I want to talk about the DNC. They had a chance to stop dark money in primaries this week, and it appears that is not going to happen. So joining me today is Ron Placone, my co-host. Welcome, Ron. And Hey, Ron. And we also have a very, very special guest today, longtime DNC member, fighter for progressive causes, member, fellow at the Sanders Institute, Dr. Jim Zogby. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tina.
So what is happening? They had a chance to pass a resolution, I believe, that was introduced by the Nevada State Chair, Judith Whitmer, that would basically ban dark money in Democratic primaries. What happened?
Judith and I wrote it. We got 35 or 6 co-sponsors among DNC members. It's a pretty healthy amount. We presented it today, and no one put it on the floor for a vote. The chair said, anybody want to put this on the floor for a vote? And there was dead silence in the room. It was absolutely stunning. And so the resolution was never even considered. I know how that works. I was chair of the Resolutions Committee for a decade. I was a member of the Resolutions Committee for 20 years. It means that staff whipped the members and said, don't you dare. I remember I was a member of the Resolutions Committee in February 2003 and introduced a resolution saying we should not support the Iraq War because we don't know the cost, consequences, or terms of engagement, and we've not been told the truth. We can't send young men and women into a war that we don't, we don't understand. And same thing happened. I was allowed to present it, to speak on its behalf. I even got a standing ovation for my speech, and then there was dead silence in the room. No one dared violate what the staff whips. I mean, they brought out all the heavy guns to intimidate people. What struck me was I've been a member of the DNC for 30 years. I went up to folks afterwards who I've known. I mean, they've served on the committee with me. And I said, why did this happen? They wouldn't look me in the eye. I mean, I felt like I was in a kind of a Stalin era Communist Party meeting where I had become a non-person and I couldn't be trusted to be spoken to. It was really quite disconcerting. I mean, they did not want to get rid of dark money, and they whipped people into line to block it.
And let's be honest, Dr. Zogby, the reason it's so problematic is the primary elections are really where the action is at this point.
Right.
Because of,
and that's where the money got spent. I mean, there was $6 million in Donna Edwards, more than 4 against Andy Levin, more than 4 Cori Bush. Summer Lee had almost $5 million spent against her. And it came from a really seedy collection of groups. But look, let's also be honest about this. This ganging up on progressives is what the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Committee, used to do. I believe that they have farmed out this dirty work now to the dark money groups. And that's why they didn't want to block it, because they basically want to stop progressives, but they don't want to do it. They want to do it without fingerprints. And so they've got these groups doing it on their behalf, and it's pretty pretty ugly.
It is ugly because it's not supposed to be what the Democratic Party is about. They're saying on one side that we support these progressive causes, that we want to overturn Citizens United, dark money is bad, but then they had an opportunity to actually do something about it, and they didn't do it. And
so I think they did pass. Well, let me correct that. They did pass a resolution right before ours that called for overturning Citizens United and banning dark money through legislation. Now, the point is that the person who presented it started by saying, we can't do this, we can't pass this, we can't pass that, and cited all of the progressive issues that we have not been able to move forward because of the fact that the Senate can't get the votes. And then she said, and the reason for it is because dark money has influenced these senators, so they big pharma and this and that. And then she says, and therefore we have to pass a bill banning dark money. Well, come on, you have to understand the logic or the illogic of recognizing that you can't do it And so basically what they're saying is we can't do it. We're not going to do it, but let's look good like we're trying to do it. The one thing they can do is govern their internal party affairs and say, we're not going to let dark money be spent in Democratic primaries without calling it out. That they wouldn't do.
Right, because it's entirely hypocritical.
Completely.
And here's the other side of the situation, just so people have the lay of the land. The reason the primary elections are so much more important is because that is where decisions are made. We have gerrymandered districts across the country, and unless you're like California, where you have some sort of a semi-open primary system, the general is sort of predetermined by who wins the primary. That's just the way it is. Right. So it's really important for these corporations and these special interests to buy off these primary elections, and it's also cheaper for them to do so than going into a general. And, let's talk about Andy Levine. You mentioned him. Here is a Jewish progressive. He is a bit of a Zionist. He's not an anti-Zionist, but he does believe Palestinians are deserving of having some rights. And apparently he is just not right-wing enough for AIPAC. So they put a lot of dark money into his campaign. So here you have an instance where an actual Jewish progressive candidate is having money against him by the Jewish, by the Israeli lobby, and because they want to support a more mainstream candidate that's in line with their way of thinking. It's pretty perverse when you think about it, but this is what happened.
It actually is. And let me tell you that another part of this is that it's not just taking out the progressive candidate, right? It's also the damage that gets done to the process.
Yeah.
When millions of dollars, look, in almost every one of these instances that I mentioned, the dark money spent more money on the campaign than the candidates did, right?
Oh, 100%.
And so basically you have candidate A running against candidate B, and then dark money C spending more money for candidate A than candidate A spent on themselves, which is a perversion of it's not, the people aren't deciding the election, the dark money is. And look what happened. Nina Turner was so slandered.
Yeah.
And her name was so tarnished by the dark one. They don't go into these advertising with, like, she's bad on this issue. They don't say she's bad on Israel or she's bad on healthcare or she's bad on this. They tarnish the person. Summer Lee was defamed throughout the entire campaign with dark money. It takes a toll on the reputation of these candidates and is very hurtful to them. And yet we can do something about it as a party by saying, we don't want that to happen anymore, but we passed on it this time. We didn't, They didn't want to go against it. They just decided we're too cowardly to speak out. So they decided to just pass.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
And look, let me preface this a little bit by saying, James, I respect people like you who are in the inside and trying to make it better. I really do. That being said, I have as much faith in the Democratic Party as I do in a God, and I'm an atheist. In what way can this or will this ever change? I mean, it's just so on the surface. Of course, they don't want to get rid of the dark money in primaries because they spent over $50 million defeating progressive challengers. And if it ever becomes a more viable threat, they'll spend $50 million more. How can this trend ever be reversed? Can it?
You're talking to me on a bad day, Ron, because I'm feeling the pain here. But look,
I feel you. I respect what you're trying to do. I really do.
Look, I've picked three big fights in my life: the Israel-Palestine, the Catholic Church, and Democratic Party. I'm not doing so well on any of the three, but I feel like Sisyphus. I mean, I see that fucking stone, and I say I got to roll it up the hill, and what am I going to do? I mean, the choice is I could just walk away from the whole thing, but I can't walk away from it because it galls me. It irritates me. The people who are silent irritate me, and I'm just going to continue to be a thorn in their side as long as I can. Jesse Jackson told me one time when I was feeling down about stuff, I said, man, I'm going to quit. He said, don't quit, because if you quit, you give them just what they want. What they're most afraid of is that you keep sticking around and fighting. And I saw it today. I mean, I know that they defeated us because they're afraid of us, because our numbers actually are growing within the party. Bernie helped us spur a lot of progressives into important roles. They will do what they can to beat us. But you know what? I'm not giving them a free pass. I'm not giving them a ride. I'm not going to say the coast is clear, guys. As long as you are there doing what you do. I'm going to be here doing what I do and making your life a little bit tougher. That's all I can do.
Jim, I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned the second resolution. I do want to bring it up because I think this speaks very loudly of what I have seen. As you know, I've been there covering DNC party things before. I've seen you do your fight. You are amazing. Keep up the fight. I know you're probably feeling down right now, but you are standing up for good. But let me ask you this. The second resolution that you're talking about, dark money, was introduced, I believe, after yours. And it seems to me that this is a tactic that the Democratic Party or the DNC uses, right? So they did it with the climate change, right? So let's introduce a second resolution that has no teeth at all, but sort of makes us look like we're the good guys. Let's pass that one instead. So we stop the one that would actually make a change in its tracks. But we're also like putting out the signaling to people that aren't really paying attention that this is what we support.
They actually did it before ours.
They did it before. Okay.
They placed it right before ours.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right, Tina. What they'll do is on Saturday morning at the DNC meeting, they will announce, and we passed a resolution banning dark money. No one will read the damn resolution and realize it doesn't ban a thing, but it gives them something to crow about. And that is why it's doubly irritating, because they get to say they did something when they didn't do a thing. And they ended up beating the resolution that might have made a difference. Look, like I said, I'm not walking away from this. It's interesting because you know the normal process here is that you start off with I felt humiliated, and then I felt resigned. Now I'm really angry, and I'm going to figure out what to do next. I'm writing a piece for The Nation on it, talking to you, talking to other reporters. We're not going to let them get away with this one easily. This is a fight that we're in for the long haul. And yeah, Ron, I agree with you. It's frustrating. Look, I've been doing this since the Jesse Jackson campaign in '84 and '88. I am not new to this game of being defeated and feeling that, there's just it feels hopeless at times. But I know I can continue to give them a hard time. I know that we make incremental progress along the way, and I'm in it for that purpose and that purpose only.
Yeah. Another question about Democratic or DNC procedures. So Jamie Harrison, who's the new chair, seems to be doing some of the same things that Tom Perez was doing, meaning that he has his proxy votes. These are folks that are members of the DNC. They're not necessarily present for voting, but he has their proxy vote to do with what he wants, right, basically. So if he wants to change a decision, when voting comes around, he just slams those guys on the table and said, here are my 100 proxy votes. This is the way it's going to be. I'm seeing some of that same stuff coming from Jamie. What is your thought?
I let me take a slightly different I've gotten to know Jamie.
Okay.
He maybe people will say, "Oh, he just fooled you," but I don't think so. I mean, I like Bush and Putin. I looked in his eyes and I saw his soul, and I really feel that this is not his decision to make. I think he's a captive. I have seen the DNC when we have the White House, and I've seen the DNC when we don't have the White House. Jamie would have been a great chair when Tom Perez was chair, when we didn't have the White House and the White House didn't call the shots. But he's the chair when the White House is calling the shots, and I don't think he has the authority. And I know that because he and I have talked about things that he wanted to do and that he wanted me to do and that he wanted us to do together. And then he gets overruled by whoever in the White House is calling the shots. And the professional staff at the DNC, who have never been involved in party building. They've never been involved in a state party or organizing. They come from the consultant class, and they've made their millions. They come back to the DNC, and then they go back to the consulting groups. And they're the ones who are dictating what happens and what doesn't happen. And Jamie becomes the figurehead. I think that if he were in charge, it would be a different situation, but he's not in charge. And I think, it is this, what do we call it? The deep state. But there is a group of people who are making a bundle off this operation. They funneled $800 million to $1 billion a cycle, and it goes out through consulting groups who really don't. I mean, I actually think at the end of the day, they don't so much care if we win or lose the elections as long as they get the contracts.
Right.
And that's the issue. That's what actually got me in trouble, as you recall, when I was on the Unity Reform Commission, was I wanted accountability and transparency for the budget, and I wanted us to live up to the bylaws, which say that we had to annually review the budget and the effectiveness of expenditures. Now, you can't tell me that if we spend that much money and we keep losing elections, that somebody ought to not be having their heads rolling on the floor because they didn't do the job wisely. But we never call into question the money that gets spent. And
it's going to a handful of consultants, right? It was, if I recall correctly, it wasn't more than 10.
Yeah,
we're taking lion's share. Yeah,
they get the bulk of it. I'm gonna have to go, but thank you so much, guys, for doing it.
Can I ask you one more question on your way out? Because it's going to parlay into my next segment. The Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia, my understanding that there was also a resolution on the table to vote against that, and that did not move forward. Is that correct?
Right. Okay. Right. I mean, yeah. Yeah, and the other resolution was another one I did calling on the party to do more to reach out to ethnic voters. I chaired the ethnic council in the party. And they did the same thing. It was dead silence. It was like no one would raise their voice to put it on the floor. And I just don't get it. It's almost like they want to lose, and I'm the one that doesn't want them to lose, but they do. Yeah. Listen, I've been writing about all this on Twitter. Have people follow me if they want.
Your Twitter? Yeah, tell everybody where your Twitter handle is.
It's JJZ1600.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
And that's not pretension. It's the address of my office, JJZ1600. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much, guys.
I appreciate it. Ron, so there we have it.
That was bleak.
It is bleak. So Dr. Zogby's, he's been a DNC member for a very long time.
And look, I respect what he's trying to do. I really do. But it's like when you hear accounts like that,
it's depressing.
It's so depressing because it's like, I mean, here's the thing. We have this debate as to, like, do we need to build a structure outside of the Democratic Party, and is third party the way to go? Or can we enter and have a progressive takeover of the Democratic Party? This is a worthwhile debate to have, and it's a discussion we should have. What I think a lot of people miss in the debate, regardless of which side they fall on, I'm more of a third party guy. And people will point out, like, well, for a third party to really be viable in the United States, you really need to change the rules. You really need to change the way elections are funded. You really need to change the way money works. That is true. However, my response to that is, for a progressive takeover of the Democratic Party to be possible, those same rules also need to change. At the end of the day, regardless of which strategy you think would work, or I mean, the rules need to change, because otherwise you're going to keep having, folks like James who are, fighting like hell. And again, I respect what he's trying to do, but it's like they're going to encounter those same obstacles because the big money is just going to keep locking it and keep locking it. And unless you single-handedly replace most of the DNC and most of the people in Congress and the Senate, that's not going to change. So you need to really, I mean, I'm not trying to oversimplify things. This is just the way it is. You need to get money out of politics.
Period. Yes, because no matter which route you choose, it's dark money that's going to stop you from achieving your goals. This is absolutely the case. It's very frustrating. So in West Virginia, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, this resolution would have basically said the DNC saying we're against doing this pipeline, and it's been very damaging in West Virginia. I wanted to play some clips of Jordan on the ground there in West Virginia talking to some residents that are being affected by this pipeline. Colin, can we play those?
But one of the commissioners was pointing out they've never seen a pipeline on this scale, in this kind of land, the steep terrain. Also, when you're talking about pipelines going under this kind of land, if there's an explosion, the blast radius could be potentially
2.5 miles. Everything will be dead in 2.5 miles. And that's all but my son. And if he's visiting, that wipes us out. I mean, my sister-in-laws both live in town, and my brother-in-law's up here, some and some not. So that will wipe out the seventh generation of Terrys, pretty much. 2.5 mile, that's all my friends, all my neighbors, and all my family gone. And the firefighters up here said, Red, there's nothing we can do. It'll take them a while to turn the gas off, so it'll be fueled by the gas. And he said, there's no way we can fight it on this steep terrain.
And there, I think
I don't see the big deal. They just the sun just can't go over their house anymore. What's the problem? No, that's terrible. I mean that's nuts.
it is nuts.
Such a dangerous pipeline. Not that there's any safe ones.
No, there's no safe ones. Listen, we should not be investing
more
in
dangerous.
Yeah, listen, climate change is real. I am sitting here dying right now, even though it's much cooler than it has been the last week. It was 112 degrees at my house on Saturday. 112 degrees. That is insane.
Man,
Absolutely.
we're feeling it here in the South Bay too, but we don't really have much room to complain compared to y'all. Because
Yeah,
like,
it's so-
I was actually with some friends last night in San Pedro, and we were like, "Oh man, it's been so hot." And then the one guy was like, "Shut up! I was just visiting my mom in Palm Desert." And we were like, "Yeah, I guess compared to people in the valley, and yeah, we don't have it so bad. Maybe we should."
I mean, I don't even live in the Valley or Palm Desert. I'm in a cooler area. I can't even imagine how hot it was in those areas. But this is just a small insert of what's happening across the globe. I mean, look at the floods in Pakistan. You have London's melting. I mean,
Ohio had a big flood. Ohio's
it's-
got a big flood. Like one of their Renaissance fairs was like flooded out. You know, you didn't see that on CNN, did you?
No.
But yeah,
we can't do fossil fuels anymore. The time has come. If we do not stop right now in our tracks, it will be too late. It might be too late now. Who knows? But point being is, why is the Democratic Party dragging its feet? So they're basically saying, yay, dark money, or boo, yay, dark money, and yay, pipelines. Let's not fix any of these things. And then they turn around and say, like, but this is our platform. Our platform says that we are for, the Green New Deal. We are, empowering workers' rights. We're going to do something about healthcare. But they're not actually, when push comes to shove, they're not doing that. This is just one more DNC meeting where we're seeing that play out.
Well, Biden was very upfront that he did not support the Green New Deal. Biden was also very upfront that he would not ban fracking. So,
That's true.
And they hide under this guise like, oh, we don't want to alienate voters. Most people, it's like most people want a sustainable planet to live on, and most people would rather have a sustainable green job than risk getting, like all kinds of conditions by working in a coal mine or like a temporary fracking well. Most of those jobs aren't permanent and they're dangerous. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to have a true sustainable environmental plan would be such a big winner.
We're talking about big money in politics. There's a reason that this is not the case, because it's not logical. You're correct. So let's also be clear. It's not just the Democratic Party that is lapping at the trough of dark money, is it? It's also the Republican Party, and they do it very effectively.
No, wait, the Republicans do that too? No shit.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
So I wanted to follow up. We talked last week about a billionaire named Barry Seid. I've now got his correct last name pronounced in is Seid, not Seed. So Barry Seid was exposed in Lever News by David Sirota and Andrew Perez last week. They had a whole expose on how he's been funding these things. So Andrew was on Democracy Now! This morning talking about some follow-up reporting on the situation. So I wanted to bring this to your attention. He's gauging something that he's calling attack philanthropy. So let's play this clip and we'll get a little bit about what's going on here.
So, people some campaign finance reporters were loosely aware of Barry's side. But what we learned is that he's become, fabulously wealthy between 1996 and 2018. He took in $1.7 billion in income. And in that time, he donated at least $775 million to nonprofits. So he is a giant donor, probably one of the largest donors in the U.S. and very, very little known.
So, Andrew Perez, you keep learning more. You talked to a close friend of Barry Seid, Barre Seid. He said that Seid described himself as prone to anonymity paranoia. So this leads to this issue of dark money. This is changing the landscape of politics in the United States. Can you talk about what he wants to do with education, with Medicaid, and, of course, the denial of climate science?
Yeah, well, so he's funding groups like the Heartland Institute that are hotbeds of climate denial. He's funding groups like the State Policy Network that have opposed Medicaid expansion, that push deregulation and tax cuts at the state level, that have pushed voting restrictions. And now he's giving money to Leonard Leo, who is, we understand Seid considers himself to be a libertarian, but Leonard Leo is a staunch social conservative who has built the Supreme Court to tear down abortion rights in this country.
So what he went on to talk about that I wanted to talk about actually was George Mason Law School. That is one of the institutions that Barry Seid has given money to. Koch brothers have also given money to this institution. George Mason Law School has pretty much spawned SCOTUS decisions. Brett Kavanaugh was teaching there for a while. They've now renamed the law school Scalia after, Scalia, obviously. Sure. And, back in 2017, the students there actually sued the school under a FOIA request because they wanted to know what was attached to the dark money coming from the Koch brothers going into the university. They wanted to know what the conditions were because at the time there was a lot of discussion about the Koch brothers giving money to universities and having these sets of conditions that would allow them to place professors into certain positions and to teach certain viewpoints, which is really an affront to academia, right? So in 2017, they sued. They didn't win because the Virginia State Supreme Court basically said that since they had, wait for this logic, they had a private foundation that was attached to the university. And since the private foundation was the one that was receiving the money from these folks and then, spending it through the school. I mean, they're obviously tied together, but this was the argument that they used and were successful with, that the private foundation is private and not subject to FOIA for that reason. So,
well, I'm glad they did what they did, and I'm not necessarily trying to make light of it, but I guess I'm kind of going to at this moment. Like, it took them, there were no red flags to them until after they graduated. Like, they didn't really look around and go, ha! I feel like there's some conflicts of interest in this place.
Oh, no, these were current students that did this.
They were current. Okay, all right.
Yeah. No.
Did they take a campus tour first? Did they read the brochure thoroughly?
Did they look at the teaching faculty?
I'm just saying, like, if I had never heard of Brigham Young University while I was applying for undergrad, I think just sleuthing through a couple flyers and looking through a pamphlet, I'd be like, this place, not for me. And I wasn't ready for law school.
It is a highly rated law school, though, so I could see why folks would apply there. But having said that, again, this is speaking to the fact that dark money isn't only problematic in the Democratic Party. It's problematic in both parties, and it's problematic in the country because it's not just Congress folks that they're trying to buy. It's just not politicians that they're trying to buy. They are also buying academic institutions and whatever else they can buy to control the narrative in the country. We all know that if kids attend a school and they're only given a certain viewpoint that fits this really extreme right-wing libertarian point of view that the Koch brothers have or that Barry Seid has, that's going to change the way these students graduate and then perceive the world as they go out into the general public. In many ways, you could argue that the overturning of Roe v. Wade was part and parcel to that, right? All of these things are very much connected together. So dark money in the country, it's incredibly problematic. It's why in many ways we can't have good things, just to make it really simple.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think bringing it back to electoralism, it's one of the reasons I feel the way I do, that it's like we need to change the way our elections work. We need to change the way our system works. And we would be so much better off if we had something that was more remnant of like a more parliamentarian, representative, democratic system that other countries have. I'm not saying anywhere's perfect. Of course, there's plenty of problems. But when you have two parties and they are both owned by Wall Street, let's be honest, they're both owned by Wall Street at the end of the day. Republicans, Democrats, the Democrats just try to be a little more subtle about it. And we just had a firsthand account of the type of stuff that goes on. And that's how they're more subtle about it. When you have a system like that, I mean, you're just going to be forever in that neoliberal, neo-fascist tug of war. And that's not a good tug of war to be in. But when you look at other countries where they do have, like, yeah, maybe the communists and the socialists don't hold a ton of seats. In most cases, they don't. But guess what? You need their votes and you need their support to get policy passed. So there's better coalitions, and they're not near as extreme as what we have. Are they perfect? Fuck no. But they're better than what we got by a lot. And that's what we should be striving towards. That's why I like when I see the people who electoralism is their bag. We all have our spots, right? Like, I'm definitely an outsider. I like being an outsider. I have no desire on being on the inside of electoralism at all. But if electoralism's your thing, are you fighting for ranked choice voting? Are you fighting to get money out of politics? And if not, those should be some really big pillars to you. Because if you really want to see the system change, that has to be part of it. We can't just mindlessly run people that are really good at spouting off progressive policies, and then they just run somewhere with no infrastructure, whatever, and then they just lose, and we're like, well, gee shucks, let's just keep doing this a million more times. It's got to be a little more strategic than that. I'm not trying to bash any well-intentioned folks out there throughout the country, but that's just the way it's got to be.
I hear you. And a lot of the money that Dr. Zogby was referencing that went into the Democratic primary was actually Republican donor money. So it wasn't even only solely coming from Democratic Party members. So
Nina Turner especially. Nina Turner. It was a ton of like actual Republican money. That's why I don't know about you, but I was so frustrated with like Nina Turner.
And me too. I mean, just it's insane.
Yeah. Well, when she lost both times, I mean, you had a lot of people who were like, they were angry. They were like, lefties weren't hard enough for her. And it's like, you're not mad that she had both the DNC and the GOP spending money to defeat. The GOP was helping out another Democrat to defeat her. That doesn't make you mad. The problem is someone on the online left who doesn't support electoralism the way you do, or doesn't support, going through the Democratic Party the way you do. That's the problem, not the GOP spending money to defeat progressive challengers. That's no big.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It seems that they're fine taking the Republican money if it suits their end game, which is defeating, progressive candidates.
Of course, but then they'll make some big symbolic gesture by not taking money from AOC, which, by the way, I mean, AOC was wrong to offer it. I mean, I was against AOC offering money to people like Connor Lamb. But then Connor Lamb's like, I'm not going to accept this because she's a radical socialist. What is it telling you about the state of the Democratic Party when they won't accept money from a colleague to their left, but they have no problem taking fracking money, taking Wall Street money, taking money from big tech, taking money from big oil, taking money from the big banks? It's a freaking joke.
It is a joke. It's ridiculous. On that note, let's talk a little bit about the Department of Justice. Today, breaking, the DOJ has filed a notice of appeal to Judge Cannon's order on the Mar-a-Lago special master. So, for folks,
this was a great transition, by the way. I just want to add really quick, since we're on the topic of jokes, Department of Justice, and go.
I love you, Ron. You kill me. So just for folks that have not been following this storyline, on Monday there was a judge that basically hamstringed the DOJ in its prosecution of Trump for the classified documents that they found at his house. This particular judge was basically making an argument that he was entitled as an ex-president to have something that somebody else wouldn't have, some rights that somebody else wouldn't have, which seems absolutely ludicrous to me.
So they're suggesting that powerful people are above the law.
Right.
It seems far-fetched, but continue.
Also, she was a Trump appointee. So the DOJ has now filed a notice of appeal this morning. We can put that up so people can see the notice of appeal.
Colin's back on the ones and twos, everybody. Colin's back.
So, I mean, the
Found
idea
him.
get extra deference just because he's an ex-president when he basically had in possession classified documents that was nuclear secrets for another country is just absolutely asinine. To me, this is a pretty cut and dry case of he needs to be prosecuted. I can't imagine why anybody would think otherwise, but here is where we are. So the notice of appeal, hang on, I got to scroll down so I can read this. Oh, wait, that's the wrong page. Hang on, let me find the right one. I got the whole thing here. Oh, here we go. All right. As previously explained, the Counterintelligence Division, for which I am responsible executive, conducts the FBI's investigations involving mishandling of classified or national defense information. Such investigations fundamentally require the FBI to understand the nature of the information at issue, including its proper classification. Thus, the FBI must conduct an assessment of the relevant information, including by obtaining a classification review. As part of the classification review, an original classification authority is asked to determine whether documents bearing classification markings are, in fact, properly classified, i.e., whether the unauthorized disclosure of the information reasonably could be expected to result in damage to national security. So, Ron, what do you make of this? Basically, they're arguing that her carve-out that she's giving the president isn't really valid.
It's not valid. I think it's... I mean, a lot of these things that like kind of pop up and then they're breaking and stuff like that. I think that when you kind of lift the veil a little bit, this is kind of more of prolonging the clock. And
Okay.
I think that's a lot of what, Trump and his people are trying to do. They're trying to just draw this thing out as long as
Right.
they can until eventually it's just not a big deal in the eye of the public. I mean, the public is weary about hearing all this stuff, which is completely reasonable. I mean, there's a lot of problems right now.
Fatigue is obvious, especially when it's involving classified documents and all of this kind of language. It can be a little bit confusing and boring, and I understand why people want to tune out. It makes perfect sense. But the idea that, so basically the DOJ is saying, like, you're interfering with our national security review. National security trumps, nice word there, Tina, is higher than your decision that Trump has an special exemption here or special deference. So I would agree with the DOJ on this, more or less.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have no right. Like, what they did isn't really based in much of anything. That's why I think it was just sort of like a tactic, really. It was just sort of like, oh, well, let's throw this out there. This judge, because the judge, like you said, was a Trump appointee, so they're buddies. So it's just sort of like, okay, let's throw this, like, let's kind of throw this other brick in the road. And the DOJ is like, well, no, you can't do that. We're going to have to appeal this. But this little thing called time is going to keep passing. And I think they're just trying. I think this is all about just sort of trying to win in the court of public opinion. Trump is always going to have some red meat for his base, which even though they're dwindling, they're definitely still out there. It's going to be interesting to see like how all this plays out as far as 2024 is concerned. And I think at the end of the day, that's what they're really kind of eyeing. Is Trump going to run again? What kind of role is he going to play if he doesn't? What's the kind of bigger picture here? Because, and again, I am fine wearing the badge of the most skeptical of all of the status crew people when it comes to this thing. That is totally the badge I am wearing, and I'm fine with it. But I think at the end of the day, it's not like there's going to be any true consequences for this dude. I think maybe he'll pay a fine, maybe. But like, they're kind of thinking, what will this mean as far as the future is concerned?
Unfortunately, I think you probably might be correct on that, even though he should be prosecuted. I don't see it happening.
We're not living in a should world, Tina.
No, we are not.
This is the way it is. I hate to bring.
No, I hear you. Also, page 1 of the brief goes on to say, if the court does not grant a stay by Thursday, September 15th, the government intends to seek relief from the 11th Circuit. So they're just going to run this up the chain. I'm going to imagine that the 11th Circuit is going to agree with the Department of Justice. Call me crazy, but I think that is where that is headed.
No, probably. I mean, but again, it's like, I mean, what's going to be, will there be like another appeal? Like, who knows? I mean, who knows how long they could like draw these
Hard to
things out.
say.
Because
Hard
there's always these little bells and whistles and little sentences that are open for interpretation, and you can interpret it a certain way and then make another claim. And, you know, too bad we didn't go to law school, Tina. We'd be able to do all this stuff. Email the Koch brothers. Tell them I'm enrolling. I want to get my law degree from Bob Jones University. I see no red flags.
I see no red flags there. You're hilarious. All right, Ron, talk to me about digital rights right now. We have some things going on with Amazon because, of course, we do.
So this is a nice marriage between what is going on in the digital sphere and what is going on at Amazon. So recently, Amazon had their most dangerous merger ever. I will go through it briefly. They merged with iRobot. That's actually the less horrifying of the two. iRobot makes the cameras for Roombas. So basically, if you have a Roomba, Amazon, the company that harvests all your data to sell you their generic shit already, they're going to have a camera on what's going on inside your house. So they can tell you if you need a new couch. Isn't that great? So that's the first acquisition. The second acquisition,
does that include would be the new units? Is it connected to Alexa somehow? Do you know how that works?
I don't know if it's connected to Alexa, but it's definitely Roombas. So if you got a Roomba, you might want to just punt that thing down the street to a neighbor you don't like, because that's what's happening. But so the other merger, which terrifies me more, and I'm gonna break down why. They acquired One Medical. One Medical is in the healthcare business, and they have memberships for their healthcare starting at $199 a year. So it's a health clinic firm, and it's like $199 a year, $199. Now, here's why this is terrifying. A, it's pretty terrifying that Jeff Bezos is getting a piece of the corrupt, for-profit, predatory healthcare system in general. That's already pretty disturbing just on its surface, just within that sentence. But here's what's even scarier. You look at what Jeff Bezos did to have Amazon in the first place. Well, what did he do? He operated at a loss, thanks to his parents' friends' money, as long as he needed to, until he could just own the online market, pretty much. So he's going to do the same thing in healthcare. He's going to operate at a loss as long as he needs to. And by the way, he has unlimited cash, so he can do this indefinitely. And then he's going to have a monopoly over healthcare. So the guy who is willing to have ambulances parked outside of warehouse facilities, we're going to get to that in a second. He's willing to have ambulances parked outside of warehouse facilities instead of having proper ventilation and air conditioning because it saves him a buck. That guy is going to be in charge of healthcare. That should scare the shit out of you. Somehow, our predatory system of exploitation can potentially get even worse with Penis Rocket Bezos calling all the shots. I mean, this is like, you couldn't write this stuff. This is a comic book villain plotline times 10. Now, what else is going on simultaneously? Well, in New Jersey, Colin, if you could pull up the Jersey story, in New Jersey, 3 people in July, 3 people in 3 weeks died in the warehouse facilities. And it's gotten to the point where the Department of Labor is getting involved. And now 30 different labor groups are calling on Amazon CEO. The CEO is actually not Jeff Bezos, it's somebody else. But 30 different labor groups are calling on Amazon CEO to have to testify in front of Congress and in front of the labor board because 3 people, I mean, they are dead. Like, they died because the warehouse facilities are that brutal that they died doing their jobs. That's what's happening. Meanwhile, they're letting this guy merge with health insurance, like healthcare. I mean, this is criminally ridiculous. And by the way, guys, there's some antitrust legislation out there right now. Go to antitrustsummer.com. I know you hear me say this a lot, but it's because we got to force the vote on this thing. Go to antitrustsummer.com. Demand that they put the antitrust bills up to the vote that would start breaking up Amazon and all these tech giants up. We need to start fighting back. Antitrustsummer.com, please.
So I want to go back and talk a little bit, Ron, about this medical company that they're buying. So it sounds to me like a little bit like a mini Kaiser setup. It was something that I had not previously heard of. So you
Yeah,
pay
it's not huge.
24/7 on-demand virtual care. So I guess that's
Yeah.
you see a doctor over the internet. How big is this? How many clinics do they have? If you're not by one of their like actual facilities, can you go? Like, do you know anything about this organization?
Well, I think it's like if you're not by some of their facilities, they'll just try to push more of the telehealth stuff. I mean, they're not huge right now, to the best of my knowledge, but
Yeah, it says they have 188. That's not very many.
that's not very many. But Amazon started just selling a couple books out of a garage. That's the concern here.
Right. And he does have
Because
the deep pockets to keep funding it.
he has unlimited money, so so it's like where they're at now. Unfortunately, it doesn't even mean that much, because it's like, where will they be when he takes the reins, and what is he
Well,
going
that's
to
just
try
it,
to do?
isn't it? Now we have one more billionaire that's going to be funding anti-Medicare for all positions.
Yeah.
If he's looking to go into healthcare, that's where this is headed, right?
Well, of course, and he was already there, but now it's just like, okay, he's going to not only stop things like Medicare for all, but he's also going to try to basically have a monopoly. I mean, that's what he did with Amazon. They're responsible for over 50% of all online commerce. So if he gets involved with healthcare, well, imagine if Jeff Bezos is in charge of 50% plus of all healthcare exchanges. I mean, prices are going to skyrocket, even more so than they already do. I mean, they're already obscene. So, yeah, I mean, it's
insane.
It's hard to imagine how our system could get worse, but this would make it even worse, which is hard to even fathom.
Yeah, and he spent $4 billion on this, so this was a $4 billion bet on healthcare. This is crazy.
Which would be like a regular person spending like $50 or something, but yeah, it's still a lot of money.
It's all relative. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. What else, Ron? What else is on your mind?
Well, in the digital rights sphere, I think that kind of covers it. Those are the main things on my mind. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so
the water crisis in Jackson is on my mind. Shall we go there next?
Yeah, we should go there next. How is it that we talked about a little bit about this last week too? But how is it that this capital of the state allowed their facility to be so far run down now that they can't even pump water to its residents? I mean, they put out the press release, not even for using the bathroom, not for watering. I mean, so it's not just the drinking water. This is a very dire situation. Yeah.
Well, and they have, I mean, you saw the footage out there of like the water lines and people we have some coverage that Status.
We did, yeah. Colin, can we play Lewis's interview? I don't know if you have that handy. So we have Status Coup. Lewis was out there interviewing some folks there in Jackson on the ground.
Status Lou is his nickname, actually. We call him Status Lou in the cafeteria.
In the cafeteria. Status Lou. Oh my gosh, you're so funny. Colin, are you able to?
If you want to talk about how the water crisis so far has been affecting you here at this facility.
Well, it's been affecting us because we can't use it to cook with. We can't drink it. So since I've been here for a year, and I've always boiled the water since I've been here, and I've never don't brush my teeth with it. I shower with it, but I don't wash my face with it anymore. And then I went to somewhere else to wash my hair because I didn't want it to get in my ears, my eyes, or my nose. So it's difficult. Then when you're driving around, some people don't have vehicles. So, but I have a truck. You know, I'm able-bodied, and I use this walker. And when you go around to get water, they're only going to give you one case. So you got to drive around again. I'm like, well, why don't you just fill my truck bed up? I live in a senior place. I could be delivering water. But they won't do that. I had so much water because I drove around and around and around. But when they filled my bed up, I drove around again. They wouldn't give me any more water. Said I had too much. How can you have too much water and you have to drink it every day? It's poor leadership. You know, things come from the head down. Like the word of God says, from the head, it flows from the head down. If the head is doing nothing and being ambivalent or ignoring the issue, and this isn't just an issue that's just started this century. This has been going on in Mississippi for centuries, for it to be the poorest state in the union with the highest taxes. That makes no sense. When people are still living in abject poverty in the 21st century, you know, it makes no sense. So it starts with leadership. It has to start there because they're the one that's supposed to be providing, receiving funds. Well, the funds that they received, we never got. They never dispersed to the citizens. When COVID came, the COVID money, the governor says, oh, I'm cutting this off, I'm cutting that off. I can get no services from this city of Jackson. I qualify for nothing. So they say.
Yeah. And I mean, right, you mentioned obviously the COVID happens, you had the first boil water notice, now you have another one. It seems like thing after thing. And for the governor to be like sending, it's like, oh, we have this federal money, but like, we're not going to disperse it seems insane.
Streets are still in horrible conditions. Drive around the city of Jackson with your camera and take pictures. I almost broke down in tears when I first moved back here and drove around. The street, a main boulevard at Delta Drive and Highway 49 were filled with holes this large. You had to go through an obstacle course. It was all the way down past the concrete broken. And they had just voted the mayor back in office. Why? If he's a representative for the city and the current governor is a representative for the state, and the city council is supposed to be representing districts, something is wrong.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad.
I mean,
It's very
you know,
bad.
it's crazy because like a lot of times when you talk about the problems of the United States, I mean, I can remember, when I was in school and stuff, and we'd be talking about, it'd be history class or it'd be like whatever, and we're talking about the country. They'd be like, well, you're lucky you live in a place where you can turn on the spigot and there's clean water, and you can turn on. And it's like, well, tell that to people in Mississippi. Tell that to people in Flint. Tell that to people in parts of New Jersey. Ironically enough, I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I could have said, tell that to people that are about 20 miles north of where we're at right now. Or east, like whichever direction.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just so nuts that it's gotten to this point. And then when she's talking about like just the cases you can get, you don't realize how much, I mean, unless it's like, oh, your water got shut off, like when your water gets shut off, like in your apartment complex or something, and it's shut off for a few hours, in times like those, you realize how small a bottle of water really is. You know what I mean? It's not a lot. And then if you ever have to like bathe with something like that, you realize how little that actually is.
Right.
And for people in Mississippi, I mean, that is their normal now. And it's been their normal for a long time. I mean, she has to go to different locations to bathe. She can't wash her face. I mean, that's absurd. And then how was it not heartbreaking when she described herself, I mean, with all those factors that she has to deal with on a daily basis to just live her life, and then compared to people in her community, well, she's able-bodied because at least she has a truck. Some people don't even have transportation. And I'm going to go out on a whim and I'm going to say that I bet public transportation in Jackson, Mississippi is not all that great.
Yeah.
I mean, holy wow. This is, I mean, it's like...
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I mean, the income inequality in the country is insane.
Richest country in the world, and we do this.
We could easily fix this easily if we had the will to do so. And the fact that our government and a lot of the people in the country just don't have that will or see this as problematic is what's really tragic.
It's
and inexcusable, in my opinion. Absolutely inexcusable.
It's beyond inexcusable. I mean, this is like, I mean, you can't call the United States a first world country anymore. I mean, you just can't. Like, this is just too... it has gotten completely obscene. And then you hear about these mismanagements of funds, like all throughout the country. I mean, we do the same thing here. I mean, we're not going through what Mississippi's going through, obviously. But like here in California, you hear of these gross, like, I mean, even now, it's like we're dealing with the heat wave. And they're like, oh, we don't know if our power grid, well, gee, why aren't we updating the power grid, Gavin Newsom? We have a frickin' surplus. We have a surplus in California, Gavin Newsom.
Half of it's been handed out to private utility firms like PG&E.
Yep.
We should,
yep.
I mean,
and then half of it is him making trolling commercials in Florida like a freaking clown. I mean that's the extra layer of annoyance when you are in like with California politics. You not only have to deal with the cretins who are attracted to political office, but you have to deal with the special brand of annoying because some of ours are people who couldn't make it in show business. So now they're trying to live out their wannabe dream through frickin' office. Look at people like Adam Schiff, people like Gavin Newsom. You know, they're failed actors.
Wait, Adam Schiff was an actor. I did not know this. I'm gonna have
Adam
to go.
Schiff's a wannabe. I mean, I don't know if he ever failed at some auditions or not. It's irrelevant, but he's a wannabe stand-up. He's a wannabe show business person. That's why he used Russiagate to inflate his celebrity. He went on speaking tours, for fuck's sake. Like that guy's the freaking worst.
Yeah, maybe a girl has a chance of defeating him.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope she. I mean, she's been running a hell of a campaign, but she's going up against the most corporate. Corporate.
She did quite well in the last primary. She came in within 1% of him. So I think I don't know. We'll see what happens in November. But so for folks that don't know this about this election, maybe a girl is she sits on the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. She's a trans person, activist, and very smart. In fact, I had her on my podcast if anybody wants to hear a hour-long sit-down interview with her. But she's running against Adam Schiff, and she's doing quite well, and has really great ideas on how to fix some things.
We got to do another local chat before November.
Yeah, I agree.
Before the election, we got to do another local chat because there's a lot to talk about. But
there's a lot to talk about. California politics are a hot mess.
Literally right now. Literally a hot mess.
So I want to, Right-Wing Insanity Report is coming up next hour. I hope everybody that's watching now will swivel over to that. That's my weekly report on what's happening on the right side of the country. So there's some laughable stuff, some serious stuff, but it's a big mix. But, I pre-record that show just because there's only one call-in and there's many of us. Hopefully one day we'll be able to afford more than one call-in. Colin can have an assistant, but until then, this is what we're doing. So I had a feeling that this was going to happen today, and now it has actually happened, Ron. Steve Bannon has been indicted. So when I recorded the show, he had not been indicted yet. So the take I took is Steve Bannon might possibly be indicted on Thursday. That's today. He was indicted this morning. I'm going to take folks through a refresher course on why that is. It's related to the grift that he had going on the GoFundMe with several of the people for building a private wall on the border of Mexico. So there's more fraud going in there. But I did want to play his walk of shame or his perp walk. He had quite the perp walk this morning. Can we play?
For every conservative American, this is what happens in the last days of a dying regime. They will never shut me up. They'll have to kill me first. I have not yet begun to fight.
That's sort of a weird flex because obviously they want him to talk about what he knows.
Right.
So isn't that a weird? I will not shut up. Well, that's good. We actually want to get some information from you. So that's good. You don't want to shut up. That's not what I meant.
Welcome to my courtroom. Yeah. So this is New York Letitia James that is bringing this prosecution. I'm guessing that she has. We'll find out in the next few weeks, but I'm guessing she has more information to back up more fraud than what had already transpired. He was, of course, pardoned by Donald Trump while Donald Trump was still in office, his buddy there. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. But yeah, you're right. He's like, I'm beginning to fight, It's like,
I will not shut up. Oh, good, man. We got a lot of questions for you. So that's great. You have a lot to say.
I mean, I will say this. He is absolutely committed to the grift. This guy has seen so many different versions of grifting off of his supporters that it's just astonishing. So she's basically saying that he bilked people for more than $15 million off of this thing. $15 million.
Wow.
I know.
That's so sad that people have that. That's where people spend their money on. Imagine a more constructive use for that kind of money. I still stand by my Steve Bannon theory. I think that one crazy evening, a mad scientist was experimenting with Play-Doh and gin, and an explosion happened, and that's how we got Steve Bannon.
Wait, okay, for a second there, I thought you meant Play-Doh as in the philosopher, not Play-Doh.
No, the stuff you'd play with.
Play-Doh and gin.
No.
Okay, a drunk philosopher does what now?
That's most of them, but no, that's not. It was Play-Doh.
Got you. Play-Doh and gin. Anyway, we'll see where that goes. Also, obviously, the big news that I just don't even want to focus on because, ding dong, something. The Queen of England has passed away. There's all kinds of hot takes flying around Twitter on that.
I don't have much to say. I mean, I don't.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I think
I
monarchy,
know that the monarchy's done some horrible things, obviously, and it's like, but what are you gonna say? She was 96. I mean, what do you really? I mean, I think the best takeaway was the royal family is worth $88 billion, and it would take $20 billion to end homelessness in the UK.
Yeah,
So, there you go.
They're supported by the taxpayers in England. It's surprising to me that so many British citizens are on board with that. I mean, it's kind of wild that in this, 2022 going into 2023, that the monarchy is still a thing, and it's not just in England. Other countries still have their monarchies as well.
Well, guess what? If we ever confronted them on that and said, "Hey, England, why do you let your taxes fund the monarchy? It's a bunch of bullshit," they'd be like, "You're right, United States. But if you want to have a talk about paying taxes and getting nothing for it,
at least
sit down for a second. Got some notes for you. Here's what you get taxed for. Here, you see that blank line? That's what you get back. Cool story."
At least they have universal health care. Exactly. You're not wrong there. All right. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up. Ron, do you have anything? Oh, we do have super chats. That's very exciting. Super chats. All right, let's go to the super chats, Ron.
Here, hold on. Where's the thing? Did you throw them in the? Are they in a particular chat, Colin?
They're in Tina's chat.
Oh shit, Colin, put them in Tina's chat.
I know. Okay, my glasses on. Observer.
Also, real quick, while I'm here, as a reminder, like Tina mentioned, her Right Wing Insanity premieres after this. So if you're on your computer, just stay on the live stream, and it should automatically push you over to the premiere to watch it. If you're on mobile, sometimes it'll have a little button. You just have to click the button, and it'll automatically take you over to the premiere, so you guys can all watch it together.
Colin, most important question of the hour: how was the salad I gave you?
Oh, it was really good.
All right.
I am Henry. I'm causing my own show to be starting a little bit late today because we had Jim. I was able to get Jim to come on at the top of the hour. I think it's worth hearing from Dr. Zogby, about what is happening this week at the DNC. Some crazy stuff. If you missed that, please tune in and rewatch the live stream. He was with us at the top of the hour for about 15 minutes talking about that. All right, so they're in my old eyes are going to look over here. Observer, $2. Thank you so much. Dems spent dark money to boost MAGA maniacs in Pennsylvania. You know what? You're right. So it's not only just Republican money going into Democratic Party politics. The reverse is happening as well, right? So
they're a big tent.
They're a big tent.
They're a big tent. It includes everyone except for lefties. Everyone else is in the tent.
If you're progressive, we will give you money. It's all good. I mean, it's crazy, but that's sort of what's happening here. Okay, D Nord, thank you, $20. Appreciate that. Democratic Party is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah, they can be. There's no two ways about it. It's unfortunate.
They are. I think they are. I mean, when you say the Democratic Party, it's like you're referring to the people calling the shots. You're not referring to the base. You're not referring to the voters who have no choice. You're not referring to the people who are trying to change it from the inside. You're referring to the people really calling the shots. And yes, they are a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's no two ways about it.
There's no two ways about it. You're not going to get any arguments from me on that. Venetia David.
Venetia, what's up? Speaking of the UK.
Exactly. We appreciate that. So thanks for tuning in. All right. So Colin sort of explained how this changeover goes. Just to let you know, we're going to be talking about the Antifa prosecution case that's going on in San Diego. It was supposed to go to trial this week. It's been postponed to January, but I wanted to talk about some of the Trump supporters and right-wing extremists that were present there at the protest that day, because none of them have been charged with offenses, even though they were absolutely also engaging in fights. There were 6 Capitol insurrectionists there by my count. There might have been more. A Peckerwood. So anyway, not to give away everything ahead of time, but tune in for that. I'm going to take you through that story and a couple other things. Any parting words, Ron, before we hand it over?
Yeah, I'll just give a shout out to everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, smash the like button.
Yeah.
Smash it. Tell that like button, get money out of politics. The harder you smash the like button, the more likely money is going to get out of politics. That's science. And you can follow me at Ron Placone on all social media. I'm most active on Twitter, so at Ron Placone on Twitter. For everyone in the LA area, I have a show Saturday afternoon, Saturday at 2 p.m. at the Corner Store in the San Pedro neighborhood. It is a totally free event. I'm premiering a new show where I'm doing a historical interpretation of Lucian the Satirist. He was a writer from 125 AD was when he was born. So I took some of his work and I kind of modernized it. And it's a lot of fun. You don't need to know anything about him to enjoy the show. It's going to be a fun show. There's going to be some stories. There's going to be some songs. There's going to be some jokes. There's going to be pyrotechnics. One of those things is not actually true. But come on out, and you can go to ronplacone.com for more information about that show. I'll be announcing some 2023 tour dates very soon.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the live stream today. Hope you enjoyed everything, and I will be in the chat on Right Wing Insanity Report. So if you have questions as we are going through the show, just plop them in the chat and I'll be there to answer them.